Welcome everyone to our special City Resolution Advocate meeting. We want to welcome you and we really appreciate you taking the time this evening to join us. My name is Judy Barton and I'm with Healthcare for All Minnesota. And I just want to go over a few rules. Toward the end of the program tonight, we'll have a Q&A session. If you have a question or a comment that you want to make, please use the raise your hand icon and wait until you're called on. Please remain muted unless you're speaking and have been called on, just to help with background noise issues. And if you have a question that you want to ask anonymously, you are welcome to message that to me and I will ask it for you. You can message me via the chat tool. And on that, I'm going to go over and hand it to Dawn. Oh, one more thing, we are recording tonight. I just have to let you all know that, so you are aware.
Yeah, thanks, Judy. Welcome everybody to tonight's special meeting of City Resolution Advocates. Special because it follows the recent unanimous Duluth City Council endorsement for Medicare for All and the Minnesota Health Plan, thanks to Jerry Witt, who we'll be hearing from later on, Buddy Robinson, and Duluth Advocates. And tonight's meeting is special because Brittany Shanahan, Public Citizens Resolution Organizer, joins us to relate what's working for resolution advocates in other states to enhance our work here in Minnesota. And a special welcome to supporters who are interested in being resolution advocates and joining our active advocates already working on the resolution in 7 Minnesota cities. Getting city councils to endorse Medicare for All and the Minnesota Health Plan got started with Healthcare for All Minnesota back in 2019 when MNA's Rose Roach recommended it as an effective grassroots organizing tactic. HCAM's legislative committee then worked with Linda Gridley and Rose, who led the effort to get the St. Paul Council to unanimously pass the resolution in August of 2020. Minneapolis endorsed Medicare for All in 2019, however, without HCAM's involvement. The success of the resolution at this point led to conducting a city resolution workshop last July to engage other supporters to become advocates in their cities by explaining the tactical rationale of the resolution and steps to get city councils to hear and pass it. That led to a follow-up meeting of activists who had already been working on the resolution in 5 cities. They met and formed a resolution advocates working group to meet monthly for collaborative problem solving in the resolution procedures of their respective cities. After 4 monthly meetings since July, there are now resolution advocates working in 7 cities following St. Paul and Duluth. The cities are Northfield, Maplewood, Mankato, St. Louis Park, Osseo, Woodbury, and East Metro Stillwater. And Mark Peterson, who's the chair of our legislative committee, and myself will be meeting with a supportive Anoka city council member that Mark knows after the holidays. The grassroots tactic of city resolutions is useful in HCAM's overall outside-inside organizing strategy. This means that the work on resolutions engages citizens with their council members to build political will for Medicare for All and the Minnesota Health Plan outside the Capitol, which in turn builds the legislative will of legislators for these bills inside the Capitol. The resolution tactic localizes the problem and solution, which gives less wiggle room for state legislators who say that it's a federal issue. It's not. It begins with government closest to the people, state and local, to work with us to solve the problem. Such close engagement between citizens and their elected officials shared the same pressing need and requirement that their state legislators work for Medicare for All and the Minnesota Health Plan to contain the rising costs of health coverage that's breaking the budget of city government, residents, and businesses while harming patients. Jerry's work on the Duluth resolution is inspirational and a boost for the rest of us. So now it's time to hear from the guy who actually got the job done up there in Duluth, which is my hometown. Thanks, Jerry.
You're welcome. Well, Don asked me in February to bring this resolution up for the city council, and to kick, and the resolution should have kicked up to the state legislature. And I'm going in February. This has got to happen really fast in order to get it out, because the way the legislature procrastinates, you don't want to be putting this resolution out in April or May, because they're already pushing back the session. So I took his city council resolution, and where the parts were for St. Paul, I put in Duluth, and I researched the numbers and sent that to my counselor, Ross Randolph, who jumped all over it. Said, I'm going to update the numbers, and I thought they were pretty well. I sent it to our Buddy Robinson, who's our local experienced educator on this, and he made a small minor improvement on the resolution and sent that through. It was even better, and that's where it's at for a long time. So about mid-July or so, we got Ross and everybody said, we've contacted and worked with our state senator, Jen McEwen, and we're going to put this out as a town hall meeting with John Marty and stuff. I said, okay, and nothing happened from there. Next, I heard they were going to bring it up in October, and October came, and there was nothing. But then, just after the election in November, Joel Cypress came up to me at a celebration for one of our city council candidates and said, we're going to bring this resolution up during our submission of the resolution or our city budget, and show where our money is going and how unsustainable this is. And I thought, this is even better. And that's basically what they did. They mirrored this thing with the city budget, which 26% of payroll goes to healthcare insurance. 26% of all of the loose payroll is going, and it's going up every year. It's unsustainable. And as Joel Cypress pointed out, we're paying for our own health insurance through either our employer or in lost wages, or paying it out direct. And we're also paying for the city to pay for their health insurance. We're going to double dip on this. And it really made an impact. So when they announced that they were going to bring it out on the first meeting in December, I found I tried to get a business person. I tried to get a labor person. I tried to get a doctor. I tried to get a nurse. They all came through. They presented the program. It's a budgetary problem. And there's one city councilor that I know is a small business guy, and I've worked with him in the past when I was working. And I know this testimony hit him right over the head, that he probably is not giving insurance to his own employees. And he doesn't have that great of insurance either. This is something that is really, it's an easy thing to push because everybody's got a private story. If you watch that video of that city council meeting, none of this was scripted. I had no idea this was all going to come out. I just knew I had some people to speak to it. And everybody's got a story because everybody has a family member or themselves. This is an easy thing to push. You just got to get it out there. And it worked. And I tried to get this on Almanac, but I didn't have a connection to get into Twin Cities PBS. Since then, I've come in contact with a guy that worked on the 8th District Congressional campaign, who's got a lot of contacts for the media. So from this point on, I'm going to start. I've already got a letter in last Monday or email into a commissioner in St. Louis County, my commissioner. I haven't got a response back yet, but he's my second. I've got somebody who would sponsor it, but I always go in with, I want to make sure that I got a second for any meeting. So whoever I put in there to work the thing through doesn't get stumped in the meeting because they don't have a second. So I'm working on my second first before I start working on it. But I'm going to bring this into the St. Louis County and get this passed unanimously, hopefully through St. Louis County too. That's probably all I got.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry, for the movement up there, going on from the city of Duluth now, like you said, to St. Louis County. And what really struck me, and I'm sure others, was the commonality that the testifiers, the citizens, and the council members shared over this common problem of the unaffordability of health coverage. And that was really brought out at the end by the final council member who spoke. I don't have his name on the tip of my tongue, but he disclosed that he was in dire straits with a chronic health problem that he had, and it took him 2 months to get an appointment with his caretakers, which is unconscionable in our great system where we don't have waiting lines like up there in Canada. But I'm just editorializing now, but it's true. And and his also disclosure of what maybe more that he's paying per month. And I thought I heard $1,500 per month. And I'm just wondering if that's on top of what he's already been paying. But anyway, he's had to take on another job to be able to afford the coverage he needs. So, that really defines the dire straits that he and citizens are in these days.
Well, I'll pile on that, Don. That's my counselor, and I went to him first, and he was sympathetic, but he did not have the time at the time to work on this because he had personal issues. He didn't elaborate, but must have been his personal issues. And he put me back to Roz and Joel Cypress. And it's like I said, this is an easy issue to push because you don't know going into this how many people are affected, and it just you just got to get in there and do it.
Yeah, it was heartening to hear that we're all in the same boat, whether we're up there in front of the meeting as legislators or council members, or sitting in the audience. We're all in it together. And your endorsement really is a boost. It's inspirational, as I said, and it should really inspire others to move on, such as Dave Garibaldi, who's been meeting with his Osseo city officials on the resolution, while also attending public citizen resolution meetings, learning what's working in other states, and seeing the scope and of the national campaign that Dave's going to share with us now.
Yeah, thank you, Don. I'm going to try and share my screen quickly here to introduce Brittany. Can you, is that up yet? No.
No, it's not.
All right, I'm going to.
There you go. It's up.
Okay. This is public citizens. You might have to move people out of your way to get that East Coast, but this is public citizens' extent of what they're working on now, or what they're showing is being worked on all over the country. The green are the resolutions that have been passed, and the blue are where people are working. So as you can see, there's a lot going on around the country. And I started attending the public citizen meetings via Zoom, I believe last December. And I have been attending them pretty regularly ever since. And then HCAM got their group up and running, so I got involved with that. Brittany, I'll let her explain how long their group has been going. I don't know that it was going a whole lot before that, but it might have been. And anyway, they have a great program going to get people involved and inspire them, just as we've been with Jerry and Duluth. I think, by the way, thank you, Jerry. That's having a smaller city is a big deal than just having the two, Minneapolis and St. Paul, get this done, because it does open the door for the smaller cities and towns we can point their way and say, see, they did it, and here's why we should do it. So, and with that, I will introduce Brittany. Brittany is, as I said, from Public Citizen, and has been working on Medicare for All for quite a while. And she appears nationally with different Medicare for All groups. And here's Brittany.
Thanks, Dave, and thanks so much for inviting me to share space with you tonight. It's super exciting to see you all and to see all the momentum that's going on in Minnesota, especially in these small towns, because I myself come from a small town in a rural area, and so I always have a soft spot for this type of organizing. So I thought that I would just sort of give a little bit of an overview about the resolutions campaign as a whole and why it's so important for the work we do as advocates for Medicare for All. So I come from a history of various movements, which is probably much shorter than many of the people who are here. But prior to my time working on Medicare for All, most of my organizing had been around climate justice and climate change, doing stuff in West Virginia, back when I lived in the UK. So I have a lot of experience with the environmental movement. And there's a huge difference between the movement, if we would like to call it for that, for Medicare for All, and other, what I would call peer social movements, like the environmental movement, the climate movement in this country. The big difference is that Medicare for All is a legislation-focused movement. So whereas a lot of these other social movements are movements that mobilize against a certain thing or against this idea of like a thematic change rather than a specific piece of change. This is like, we have a specific bill we want passed at the federal level, as well as state bills that are happening at the state level, which is also specific to that piece of legislation, right? And so as a result, there are challenges around this in terms of how you build a movement, because traditionally the way that movements have evolved in this country in the last 20 years have been very much focused around various opportunities to mobilize and put pressure that aren't really as accessible when the point is to pass legislation, right? So like in the environmental movement, the question of who you're going to pressure can be different depending on who you ask, who you're going to pressure, how you're going to pressure them, what are you asking them? All these things are so different, which means that you can do a tree sit, you can try and get the school board to commit to going carbon neutral. You can do so many things, whereas here we're focused on this piece of legislation. And so traditionally in the Medicare for All movement, because of this focus on legislation, a lot of effort has gone into lobbying at the federal level, as well as for state single payer bills at the state level. And in terms of like building a broad movement, this can only go so far. For one thing, if your legislator is Republican, or if your federal representative is already on the Medicare for All bill, then there's nothing concrete to campaign for, and it can be hard to maintain an active group at the local level. People will see other opportunities to mobilize that seem a lot more like they have a lot more impact. And so it's hard to like maintain the infrastructure of a movement when you don't have a federal representative who is a Democrat to pressure to sign on to the bill. And all easy legislators pretty much have been won at this point, and activists who are doing this lobbying also need more power behind them to put pressures on the reps. So the other thing we find with this movement is now that most of the easier reps to get to sign on to the Medicare for All bill have been won. These meetings are harder, and you have this meeting with this rep and they'll say to you, well, the strength of your argument, basically the strength of the argument you present is no longer enough. They need to see power behind what you're doing. And so you need to show a level of local power in order to get their support. And so, resolutions can help with this. Another thing that resolutions do offer is, it is an antidote to the disenchantment that a lot of people feel who are the most negatively impacted by our current healthcare system about federal lobbying. Like federal lobbying, the idea that you can call a representative and be listened to tends to be something that people who are have done better in life feel like they can do. And this is something that I learned as a state organizer. And so when you're talking about the real stories of struggle, sometimes those stories don't always come out as easier when you're focusing on federal targets. But when you talk to people about approaching city governments and municipal governments, they can be, that can be a lot easier. So the other thing to know is today's council members, aldermen, and commissioners become tomorrow's representatives in Congress. They go on to run for state office. It's crucially important to get them to show dedication to this issue early in their career. Now, in the last, I would say since maybe 2017, since Trump's election, really, there's been a lot of organizing by progressive lobbying groups to get Democratic candidates for office to endorse Medicare for All. But we find that about half of incoming Democrat freshmen in Congress support Medicare for All. So it's very clear that we need to get politicians earlier in this career to become a part of this movement. Another thing to know is that passing one resolution often leads to other resolutions within the area and within the state, with activists going on to train and work with other activists in the next city. And this in turn, it organically turns into a statewide coalition of Medicare for All activists. And this is the sort of infrastructure that I was talking about earlier, the sort of network that we need to be able to show in order to harness the same level of movement power as peer social movements. And I mean, I did also want to say something about what was said earlier about how amazing the stories that council members have. Like, we discovered that actually city council members, county commissioners, aldermen, these folks are among the best advocates for Medicare for All we could ask for. We just have to go out and find them, because they really are seeing, they are at the front lines of seeing how, the failures of the system are affecting their constituents. And as it was said before, so many council members know somebody and have personally experienced how broken this healthcare system is and what it does to people. So in terms of continue to talk about building an inclusive grassroots movement, the other thing that resolutions do is it offers a chance to build hybrid coalitions with local organizations and groups that don't typically work on national issues. So one example, and this is the example that I kind of learned from myself and have built a new toolkit around, but in New Haven, Connecticut, I mean, when you hear New Haven, Connecticut, you probably think, well, that's Northeast. Of course, they're progressive, but you have to keep in mind that New Haven is one of the biggest industry cities in the country for insurance companies and for big hospital systems, right? So there is a lot of institutionalized power for a broken healthcare system in that part of the country. And what they did was activists started working with a group of Uber drivers, demanding better pay and working conditions. They started they just reached out to everyone they could think of, and they showed them the resolution and they said, can your organization just sign on in support of this resolution? And in doing that, they built this new hybrid coalition that is going to go on to do other things in the area, which is really exciting. A resolution campaign doesn't just build momentum for Medicare for All. It also acts as an initiation to local advocacy for activists who may have little to no prior experience in city politics. And so this connects with a newer generation of progressive legislators, legislators who have entered office recently because they were public servants in many cases. They may have been teachers, social workers, doctors, nurses. They saw a lot of problems. They're like, I'm going to run for City Hall. And these are the people that are that are leading our resolutions. Moving on to a council champion strategy and some of the most important things to know. In most cases for Democrat councils, and most cities tend to be dominated by Democrats, and many towns do as well. Once a legislator decides that they want to introduce a resolution for you, that resolution, chances are, is going to pass. The exception for this is where the politician is controversial within the council. We've only had one resolution that didn't pass, and it was one that I actually didn't know about, so we weren't able to help with in advance. And that was a case where this one politician was very unpopular with the rest of the council, and so the rest of the council just streamlined it in the agenda so that they could humiliate that person. So, but with that exception, the thing to know is that is that most council members, most meetings are in the evening, and they would rather not be in the meeting all night. So they're only going to introduce someone that everyone's going to vote yes on. The other thing to know is that most council members tend to view resolutions as less important than like the real stuff, just because it's technically non-binding. And so unless they have serious reservations about it, they're probably going to vote yes, because they don't want to alienate themselves from the council, from their colleague who is introducing it, because they're going to need their colleague's support for their own issues later on. And so they do tend to vote for others' resolutions if they're like, even if they're like moderate Democrats. So the best thing, you know, and again, like you can be surprised. And so for this reason, it's often good to start out with a moderate or someone who's generally well liked in the council. You can be surprised at how many moderate Democrats at this level of government are interested in Medicare for All as a federal policy, especially as it was said before, since it could save the city governments a lot of money. So the best thing to do at this stage is to identify one or two individuals and request a meeting with them. And if you can include information on the people who want to join, especially if they can be identified as a member of an influential local organization, like say there's like a local group of League of Women Voters, or maybe if someone from a church congregation. Nuns, priests, rabbis, union members, and nurses are all hard to say no to. If you can get the non-union organizer, I have not met that person yet, but that is like, you know, just someone they can't say no to, can be really, really fantastic to have with you when you're requesting this meeting. You want to avoid asking for an answer about introducing the resolution in your email and focus more on the request. Focus requests instead on meeting with them virtually. You want to meet with them to discuss the resolution and what Medicare for All would do for the city. So once you've found your council champion, and again, if the person you approach gives you a bunch of excuses, that doesn't mean they'll vote no on it. It just means they probably aren't your champion. So you can say, all right, and try and move on and talk to another person. Once you found your council champion, your next step is to talk with them about who they think would need convincing on the council. Some champions can be really helpful in this and giving you information. Okay, this person might be, I'm not sure, others aren't. A lot of activists do use the waiting period between when they find out that the resolution is going to be on the agenda and when that meeting happens to set up meetings with the other council members or aldermen to discuss the resolution and answer any questions. And this is like the big secret that most people don't know. The decision on whether or not people are going to vote on your resolution, most of this is made in advance. The part where you give testimony and the part is very important in terms of an organizing tool. It's very important in terms of showing power. It's very important in terms of like making such a case to these politicians who are going to run for higher office someday, how important this issue is. But most of the work and getting them to say yes happens before the meeting. And so one thing that we do at our end, and it can be a little harder if it's a small town. This may be where like Minnesota, PNHP and like other local groups will need to help out a little bit, and we can help try and do this is we make phone calls to subscribers who live in the municipalities to ask them to call City Hall to tell council to vote yes on the resolution. And so this is really good if you have any organizations that you work with that support Medicare for All with a membership base that is more sort of petition based. And that can be really, really useful. So in terms of like, and we also can help out with writing, help you write press releases and things like that. After a resolution is passed, we can also try and work. This is a thing that we offer that most don't know about. We can try and work with your city council champion to produce an op-ed. We may have a ghostwriter for them. To produce an op-ed about why the resolution was important to them to go into the local paper. So I did want to I feel like I've been talking for a little while, so I'm just going to say a couple more things, and then I have other things I can say later. But so if just so everyone knows, most of everything I've said is in our toolkit, which I'll share in a little bit. So don't worry if you didn't absorb it. Just consider this your cheerleader pep talk. But I think the thing to keep in mind here is that social movements need victories in order to sustain themselves and grow. And this can be really difficult to do in this big weakness of legislation-focused social movements, right? Because until you pass this legislation, there's no victory, or the victories are few and far between. It's really just getting people to sign on to the bill. You need your audience, the public, politicians, the media, to see hard evidence that Medicare for All is politically possible, right? In order to build that power. People believing it's possible is so important. So by passing resolution, your city government is announcing that it recognizes Medicare for All isn't just good policy. It's the city government or your county government is saying Medicare for All is a reasonable and achievable goal. So with that, I'll sort of open things up to questions. Yeah.
Linda, did you have a question?
I didn't have a question. I just want to congratulate Jerry because he and I have been in a lot of DSA meetings, and I know he's been working on this a really, really long time. And I know a lot of times he felt like the Lone Ranger. So I'm glad that he's stuck with it. And I applaud him for his win because he deserves it.
Everything that Brittany has said is excellent, but there's one thing that she's left out, and I didn't get where this resolution passed on my own. Politics is not a spectator sport. You have to go to your precinct caucus. Resolutions are great. You can pick out the person who is the incrementalist for Medicare for All. It's in the DFL platform for Medicare for All. But there's incrementalists in your precinct. But you can, we had, I don't know how many people know Eric Simonson, that name. He wasn't working, he was our state senator. He was not working for us. I'll bet you a lot of you know Jennifer McEwen. We primaried him and we got Jennifer McEwen because he wasn't working for us. To do that, we had precinct caucus training. So people learned what happened in the precinct caucus, how you got it there. We sent people in, we got people in the endorsements committees, we got people on rules committees. If you don't have somebody working for you in the legislature, it's up to us to get somebody in there who can work for you. So you have to go to your precinct caucus. You have to stand up for Medicare for All. And you have to get our people, and again, this is a popular issue. I mean, you don't have to have, if you get, we got control of SD7 vote-wise, but it wasn't a hard push to get the rest of the DFL in that party to go with us. Because it's an issue that really works for everybody. So all we got to do, or not all we got to, you have to get people in the legislature, into your city council, into your local government, and even in your state office to move this up. Amy Klobuchar is a reinsurance person. I'm not ready to kick her out yet, But if we keep passing these resolutions from cities to counties and stuff, she's going to have to listen. If she doesn't listen, we're going to have to primary Amy Klobuchar, in my view. That's my rant for today.
Yeah, yeah, thanks, Jerry. I just want to hear from Brittany what she thinks of what our strategy is in getting the support of potential council members by getting information on the cost of to the city of their employees' health insurance. Up in Duluth, it was well publicized. I learned about it just as a citizen by seeing what was published in the paper. And down here in Minneapolis, St. Paul, the Star Tribune covered what's going up in Duluth with their budgetary woes because of the employee health coverage costs. And so we want to get that basic information because council members, they're the so-called ward healers. They have to tend to the snow removal and the potholes and things really down to earth like that. And I would think by now, health insurance costs to the residents and to the city budget is unsustainable. And so we try to get that information in a couple of cases, Maplewood, and Dave can talk about it over at Osseo, getting budget information from the city administrators to then have something really substantial to talk to potential council members, sponsors, and supporters. And so that's, I think, one category of problems that our advocates has been running into. The kind of the tightness of getting that information from city administrators. So how much effort should we put into that, Brittany, in your opinion?
I think you should look at it like, I think that in the vast majority of cases, having that information is really important and really helpful.
Okay.
There's a couple of cases where in larger cities, which for the most part, we're not talking about tonight. So for example, the city of Baltimore, where I live outside of COVID. I mean, now I'm in the marshes, but outside of COVID, I live in Baltimore, and they recently renegotiated their healthcare plans as a big city, which big cities do every few years. And they're all patting themselves on the back by saving the city money by cutting benefits to employees, and they feel great about it. So like in that case, it wouldn't really matter, but this isn't what we're talking about, right? We're talking about smaller towns that really are hit harder by this problem. Absolutely. And I would say you got to think of it like, so whether city administrator, city clerk, whoever it is that's in charge of this. And unfortunately, I don't have a toolkit for calculating these expenses because it really is different in every town, who has it, what chart it's on. You have to get that information from city employees. But I would say you have to think of it like you are SpongeBob, that person is Squidward, and you got to be just like SpongeBob thinks that Squidward is his best friend. And you just got to like not take personally all the hemming and hawing they're going to do when you try and get that information from them.
Yeah.
Brittany, I'd like to just put a couple of comments in here. We had no trouble getting the cost of health insurance in our city.
Good.
We have met with 5 council people. All 5 of those council people are interested in working with us on healthcare, but they have a problem with resolutions. They want to do it via a legislative priorities where they meet with our representatives. And I'll just read you what I got today. I will push in support of universal health care as part of our legislative priorities. That said, I do not hear support from the entire council for doing a separate resolution. Personally, I'm not sold on doing one. He's one of our favorite people that this is coming from. He said, one of the things we have to figure out as a council is what our bar is for doing resolutions, especially in areas that don't have agency. That's our problem. That's our problem on getting our council people to see that they have agency in this. And somehow we're not getting that idea across to them. We have the cost. We've met with our people, but we haven't got that agency accepted yet. That's where we need help.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one. So this is what I call these banana peels. I don't know how many of you have ever played Donkey Kong on Nintendo, not Donkey Kong, sorry, Mario Kart on Nintendo, where you these cute little characters, car racing, and you throw bananas at each other to throw each other off course. And then eventually you get back on the track and you can still win. But this is a banana peel. Like, it comes across like they are giving a serious reservation for a serious reason, but the real reason that they don't want to do it is because they feel it's more than their job's worth. It's because they don't feel like it. And so usually, I mean, you've met with 5, right? So at this point, you can't keep meeting with new people. Like, there's a few ways you can go. And which town is this again?
St. Louis Park.
Gotcha. So there's a few things you can do here. One is you can start, I can share in the chat after, when we get to the next question. We have this new coalition building toolkit. You can build a broader coalition and come back with them to talk about it. Because usually when they say no like this, it means that you're not important enough. So it depends on, like, okay, are you willing to spend some time doing, soliciting the support of different local groups? Are you willing to start talking to church pastors? Are you willing to start, like, to do that kind of organizing? It is sort of like the case where there's certain people they don't say no to. I remember in Silver Spring, Maryland, like they said, they told somebody that they didn't pass resolutions. And then I went to a film festival a week later, and then they said, oh, this is the film fest. We're going to pass a resolution that today is film festival day.
Yeah.
And which just goes to say, like,
we have passed many resolutions in St. Louis Park.
Yeah. So, I mean, usually to me, it's like, it's an excuse. So there's the organizing angle. You can organize around it. I mean, you could also like how much does their legislative agenda go into actually lobbying the state government on state-based bills? I'm not sure. If it does, then maybe there is some value in it for the state bill. But this is something like, it is rarer for me to see a whole council they give this excuse. I usually see just like 1 or 2 give it excuse because they don't feel like it. But okay.
What is your idea between the legislative priorities? Because they do meet with our reps, and we do have a lobbyist, and getting the resolution passed.
I think that in almost, so if you're coming down to the end of it, in almost all situations, I do say to push for the resolution. However, because you've been told by 5 separate council members this, you could run a campaign to get a resolution and you could win, but that could be 6 months of work. And so the legislative agenda is a possibility, because usually the places that say we don't do resolutions don't offer this. The legislative agenda usually has more impacts on state level lobbying, less on federal level, because I would say that whoever the federal rep is, your federal rep, who is your rep?
Ilhan Omar. She's for Medicare for all.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, I would say, yeah, absolutely do the legislative agenda. Just because you're not pressuring her to do it any harder. So the place that can feel the pressure more is the state level. Like, I think you could go for the resolution and that would be fantastic, but it would be, you could just get that legislative agenda and then move on to the county and move on to other local towns, and you can get more bang for your buck elsewhere. But I
Great.
wouldn't suggest ever suggesting legislative agenda to anybody. Otherwise, to anybody else on here, it's only resolutions.
Thank
Thanks.
you, Judith, for your question. Linda is next.
So a year ago, or actually it's probably more than that. It gets confusing because of COVID, but before we got Nelsie to introduce the resolution in St. Paul, I went online and I looked at Stillwater, Woodbury, White Bear Lake. The city published their budgets. I found PDFs of their budget online. The problem was that some of the towns do provide health insurance. It depended on how many, it seemed like, I should say, that it depended on how many employees they had. So some of them gave like a stipend to their employees and had them go find their own insurance. They would give them so much each year and they had to find their own insurance. And some of them, it was factored into their budget. So that's another thing to look at. But I thought, and I could be wrong, and maybe it's just in the state of Minnesota, but I always thought that they had to publicly publish their budgets so that you can look at them. And it's a lot of work to look at them because you have to weed through a myriad of, pages looking for what it is that you're looking for. But in my case, I found the city clerks to be very helpful. I know now that I think about it, I was doing it when COVID first hit. So maybe they were interested in talking to someone.
Yeah, I would say it really depends on the city. It depends on the municipality. And like and it's also like how user friendly is the budget they put out. If you can find, if you're somewhere where you can find something where you can make a rough calculation, you can do that yourself, bring it into your meeting, especially if it seems like a good number to the council member you're trying to get to be your champion. And you could say, this is what I have. And if I'm right, this is really big. Maybe you could ask the clerk to verify this for me, because then when you do that, all of a sudden it's their idea. And
I did have the information on St. Paul and I did give it to Nelsie, but she had a number. I do not take credit for getting her to do this because there were a number of people that she had been talking to prior. I mean, there were a bunch of us talking to her, but she did know the value of what St. Paul was paying to insure their people.
Okay, thank you, Linda. I have a question in the chat that is asking, do you have advice for people who are trying to do this at the county level, to use at the county level?
Yes, I do. It's basically the same. It's basically the same. You're talking about commissioners instead of council members. Some things in terms of like how you're coming up with the funding and the financing may come across as differencing, but generally the approach is exactly the same. I put the coalition building toolkit on the website. In the chat, I'll put the regular toolkit in the chat. But yes, we work on county resolutions all the time. And I find personally, if you're coming across problem in your town, like a council member is being a stick in the mud, sometimes you can move to the county, try the county for a bit, and then go back to the town council. Because like that in New Orleans, when they passed the resolution there, that was the second time the activists had approached council members, which are not commissioners, but in terms of strategy, it's almost exactly the same.
I think Jerry is got his hand up. Is that right,
Yeah,
Jerry?
I was just about to call on him.
Oh,
Yep,
okay.
Jerry, your
I-
turn.
You have Ilhan Omar as your representative, and you haven't asked her to talk to your council member to say, what in the hell do you mean that we can't pass this resolution? I would use all the tools in the toolbox. Ilhan is in your toolbox.
Great
Thank you.
idea, Jerry.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Who are the legislators from St. Louis Park? The state.
Winkler is moving on. He's running for Attorney General now. So we have Cheryl Uerkamp from 46B, and then we have a new person running from 46A, and we met with her yesterday.
Good job.
And I went to her campaign opening tonight before this meeting.
Great.
She's for healthcare. We want to get in there first.
Good job.
She is
Winkler's
super. She
been,
is super. It's Kimberly Sandberg.
because Ryan Winkler has been a roadblock.
Yeah, which
For,
is,
for more than 15 years for us.
Christine Sandler.
It's Kimberly, I'm sorry. Kimberly Sandberg,
and it's not with a D, it's SAN,
right.
BERG.
SANBERG. She's on the city council right now for Golden Valley, and she's running, and the mayor spoke highly, highly, highly of her, and she's now running for 46A.
Great. Do we have any other questions out there?
I guess just to capitalize on this win that Jerry achieved. Jerry, are you interested in, did Duluth put out a press release after this resolution, or are you interested in getting one written for?
I have
publication?
made contact with somebody in a prior congressional campaign who has a lot of media contacts, and I'm going to start doing my own media release because I don't think the city council's done a well enough job, or it's been ignored. Because if you've paid attention to the Essentia buyout and the huge hospital that they're building in Duluth, a lot of people don't want to comment on it. So I might have to do my own press release, which I'm going to work on.
Yeah, we
Don
usually,
Don took a really good notes. I just pulled them up. That could be a pretty good basis for a press release, I would think, and your resolution that you drafted.
we find that activists usually have to do their own press releases. There's been a few, very few exceptions, but on our website with the map, I'm gonna put it in the chat and then I'll share the screen. Did I send that to everybody? Okay. So that I can show you, you can actually see some of these press releases.
Okay.
Screen 2. Okay. So this is our website, and this is the page you go to by going to take action in your town.
Brittany, your screen is not.
Okay, give it just a sec. Is it up yet?
No, it's not.
Did it not? Oh, it wasn't sharing. Nope, that's the wrong one.
It looks like it's starting to work.
Okay, share. How about now?
Yeah, all I see is the Zoom homepage though. There we go. It's there.
Okay, great. All right, so this is our website with the map that Dave was showing earlier. I'm looking away because I have two screens because I'm special. So on this page, this is where you, if you go to take action in your town, and then there's a find your town. This is where you find the map and then the list of resolutions. And for any of these, you can click on, so we put Duluth up, you can click on it and we'll have uploaded a copy of the resolution. So you can use this to like look and see what other towns have put on their resolutions. We also put links to press releases that have been done. So we didn't do this one. Our resolution, New Jersey did this one, just happened. Oh, I have it open in the next tab. This just happened today. Jersey City passed a resolution. So usually what happens is the activists, either activists do it themselves or we do it. And if you want us to do it, what we need is, we need to know if your resolution wasn't unanimous. We need, actually, no, sorry, back that up, because we actually write the resolution, we write the press release before the vote. We have it ready to go before the vote. So once the vote happens, we put it out. And so what we do like to have is some quotes from people who are expecting to testify, and a couple quotes from council members or commissioners themselves. And so we'll put that into a press release and put that out. Cities don't normally put out a press release for resolutions unless it's something, a mayor's pet project. So I would say that if it's a little bit after the fact, it may get picked up, may not. But the other thing, you can also consider doing an op-ed. Why we did this. You can do it around why we did this resolution effort. What we discovered. The angle could be what we could discovered about how much we're paying for healthcare, that kind of thing. We can also help with that. So that was just showing the website. Let me go back. So that's one press release. And I wanted to go back a bit to our toolkit. So in addition to the one-on-one time, like think of it as like, this is the toolkit on the website. It's just like me, but without jokes. So like, if you don't want to get my bad jokes and you want to get all the information right away, you can have a look at the toolkit. And we have like these basic steps here. I think under plan for the passage of your resolution, we have information. We have a sample press release. We have a toolkit for writing a letter to the editor. Oh, look what we did. We did. So we have this little, we have some talking points you can use in a letter to the editor. And fact sheets and things that you can use when you're writing your letter to the editor. So we also, like, the main one I would suggest is we have this suggested timeline link here. It's kind of like everything in one. And whenever I give a presentation, it's basically borrowed from this. And then we also have, I'll just leave it at that. There's plenty of more things there, but I don't want to go over everything because there's so much in there. It's more than most people end up using. But chances are, if you have a question, chances are there's something in the toolkit for you.
Great, Brittany. That looks like an awesome resource. Next up, we have Linda.
Sorry to occupy all this time, but Ann and I, a number of years ago, went and spoke to Betty McCollum's constituent person in her office. She's a US representative for us. And I basically have, I wouldn't say we're friends, but I do know her constituent person, and I keep her updated. I send her stuff in emails. She knows who I am. And so I'm my name's on a whiteboard in the office somewhere. Anyway, I'm gonna contact her office tomorrow. I'm gonna discuss a number of issues with Medicare, but I'm gonna let her know another city has signed on to or has passed a resolution. She needs to know that, even though that's not her district, she still needs to know the impact of it. And my motivation is she needs to start talking about it too. She isn't speaking up about it enough, in my personal opinion. And so I'm going to ask her to. She's also up for election, and she is going to have someone primary her. And I already spoke to her campaign manager and said, I can get you a whole bunch of people, but here's the deal.
I actually have a direct answer to that. McCollum's not on the Medicare for All bill, right? I'm looking at it right now.
What? Yes, she is.
She is?
Yep. It's in congressional records.
I'm just looking at the congressional record.
The new one, the most recent one, what is it?
Oh, gosh. Oh my gosh, you read exactly what I was doing. Okay, all right. Yes, okay, that's fine then.
Yeah.
I would say if it's not someone who's already on the bill, I would say don't tell them you're going to pass the resolution until it's passed, because if they're not on the
Right.
bill, they're going to call all the big cities in their district and say, these people are coming for it. Don't you pass this resolution. I don't want you to. And if they do that, that resolution will not get passed.
You're kidding me.
Well, it helps, it helps. I will just say it does help to make personal relationships with people in their office. And I don't care if my name's on a whiteboard. I don't care if they're angry with me. They're supposed to be working for me.
Oh, that's not what I mean. It's not about them being angry with you. It's
No,
that
I know what you're saying.
It's
Right.
that we've had representatives call council members after they've passed resolutions saying, I wish you'd asked me because I am not in support of this bill.
Oh,
So some of the ones who are not on the Medicare for All bill will try and leverage the relationships and the power they have over these council members to get them to not do it. So it's like the less mama knows.
No, I agree with that. But then once the people like Nelsie, our city council person, she really wanted Betty to know that she was the person that had introduced this and had got the ball rolling, which was great. But I just, it just boggles my mind that we think that these people in Washington that we've elected aren't working for us. They act like they're like, we're down here somewhere. We're the boss. We are the boss, and we have to keep reminding them of that. I'm done. I won't talk again.
Thanks, Linda. Jerry, you got your hand up?
This 26% of payroll that is in Duluth, the one thing that I think is in common for everybody is the health insurance industry. I think this 26% will go to any business, will go to any city, any county that is paying for their health insurance. They might have a different degree of how much they pay out. Maybe they got worthless health insurance, but that 26% of payroll is going to be consistent with the health insurance. That's the only constant thing there is the health insurance industry sucking money out of this system.
mhm.
So that 26% is got to work for just about everybody. To keep that in mind, that the money is the whole thing, that the health insurance, and again, can anybody tell me what the health insurance industry value added is to my health care?
No.
Yeah, and on that note, Jerry, Dave Garibaldi and I put together, we drafted a calculation that shows the cost savings of single payer to city governments by factoring in payroll, the two other factors that comes up with the percentage of savings. And I can share that with others who are interested, but I think that is another effective tool to use with prospective council members.
Anne?
So I finally reached my county commissioner yesterday after calling. I bet I left 16 messages. So that was bad. And I think they feel a little guilty for not calling me back. So I might get a little better response, but finally got a hold of their policy director. So Hennepin County not only runs, we supposedly have a city resolution. I think somebody said that already, Don. And I will circle back and talk to my council member about that because we've had a big shift in the city council. So that's going to be a problem, maybe an issue. But the county runs Hennepin County Medical Center and a huge county-based health system. So it's going to be really challenging to get the information and really expect, and I anticipate it's going to be a huge expense that we can talk to our commissioner about. The policy director did offer a meeting with her, but I need to prep. And I would be interested in other people who live in Hennepin County to work with me as well. Because that could be a huge job to study that budget. Any tips for studying a budget with the county that runs a big healthcare system?
I think it's the issue is, I would say, to not get too bogged down about getting the figures right on your end, because they have to tell you what's in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's more that by, and the other thing is to keep in mind is by you asking to look at them to look at it, you're already putting the question in their minds that they may have never asked before. You know, wow, is there another way out of this? So I wouldn't worry too much about feeling like a bit of an imposter when it comes to like these budgets, because you got to remember that's the purpose of this. You're supposed to feel like this, but also it's their job to answer your questions. You know, you may have to do all sorts of SpongeBob-y things to get their attention and get them to answer your questions, but that is what they have to do. But I would also say, well, Hennepin County includes parts of Minneapolis and St. Paul as well.
No, not St. Paul. St. Paul's Ramsey County. Hennepin County is large, though.
Yeah, I mean,
geographically large.
Yeah, because
it goes
like
Brooklyn Center. It includes several small cities.
Yeah.
So is the process the same? Do they pass resolutions, or is it a different process?
Yes. It's pretty much the same.
Okay.
I can also look and see, I can make a note to look and see who we have there, because I mean, Hennepin County is one of the more populated counties, you know? The other thing I would say is, I don't know what the current status, well, no, it's Twin Cities DSA, right? So they tend to have, DSA chapters tend to have working relationships with councils and boards, county boards, because you know, we tend to, as campaigners, we tend to think of them as just working on Medicare for all, but they work on other issues as well. And they work on bills in municipal bills. So they have those relationships. So they can also be really good to talk to about stuff in Hennepin County. Especially when it comes to this sort of, you know, the progressive-y stuff, right? Like, I know folks here have connections too, but you know, they have a different sort of experience, and also it can be good to recruit some of them. What I find with the DSA sometimes is they tend to decide, because they decide their campaigns democratically at a chapter level, it takes a long time to get them involved in things. You can send them your resolution for endorsement, and I would definitely recommend, if you've got your resolution running, send it to them. If you haven't already, send it to them, and then you can reach out to them saying, I have this meeting coming up. Can you please share this with your members? Would anyone like to join me? And so that way it's, you're not asking them to organize, but you're asking them to show up, and that can help.
Yeah,
But
no, I'm just getting started.
I have a contact with them, so I can sort of make that connection for you.
Great. Gary, did you have your hand up?
Yes. I'm a retired teacher, and I was involved with negotiations. And one thing that really held up our negotiation was the health part of it. The health costs played a big part in resolving that problem. Well, Don Polkoven, as he points out, there's everybody in the state is going to be on the same program. Everybody will have the same percentage. So that if that's taken off the table, in other words, the local doesn't negotiate, it's already negotiated. If that's taken off the table, they can reach, all groups will reach an agreement much quicker with that off the table.
Absolutely. I was wondering if there's anyone else on here who hasn't spoken yet, who's been like seeing some of this and is like thinking maybe I could work on this. I do want to emphasize with that question that I've given all these resources and we've talked a lot, but this is very much, this is sort of like a DIY campaign. It's like, think of it as like IKEA furniture, that you might struggle with it a little bit, but it is, you know, you can do it. So I was wondering, is there anyone who like has been watching some of this, who's sort of like thinking maybe I could do this, but I'm not so sure I have the right connections, or not so sure I could do it alone?
I just wanted to mention, I'm from Mankato, and we've talked with various Republican representatives, and uniformly the position is they don't like government running things and they don't like government spending. So it's very difficult to make any progress with them. With Democrats, what is frequently the case is the representatives are for universal health care, but they don't think that they can expend their political capital on something that is not going to be enacted. So they might say, for example, strategically, this just isn't the time to commit oneself there. So those are problems, and you have to work with them, and somehow you have to convince people that these resolutions are not just symbolic. They're going to really be effective in bringing something about.
Yes, and yeah,
sorry.
and they're not symbolic, as shown by the response of the Duluth City Council. They were very adamant in proceeding and talking with their area's legislative delegation. And so even when the resolution is passed, and I know that in most cases, except for Duluth and Minneapolis and St. Paul, you know, there's a heck of a lot of work ahead of us, but it doesn't end with the councils passing the resolution. At that point, the council members themselves become lobbyists with their legislators. And that's just a continuation of the ground up of people to their closest representatives onward to the state legislature and Congress. It's and it's a marathon. And I was impressed with, I tuned into the public citizen meeting last week and heard a council member, a woman, say that it is a marathon, and have patience, especially with those of us who want to work with you. But there are there's other work in our positions, such as budget drafting, and so just have patience with us.
This is Steve Janis from Northfield.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, Brittany, a question or a couple things for you. You know, we are a community, Northfield, of about 20,000 people. And we also have a local hospital, and that's owned by the city. Are you aware of any other cities about our size that have a local hospital that have passed a resolution? I know, because I hear a lot more, like we've got Minneapolis and St. Paul, and we've got Duluth, but these are larger population areas. And this is we're more in that rural or exurban kind of mode down here. And it's harder, I think, to address it the same way you do with the bigger cities.
I haven't really seen it come up. I'm pretty sure we've passed resolutions in places where they've operated hospitals, but it hasn't come up. Until recently, it did come up, and the way it did come up was there was folks in Dallas were meeting with a council member who was throwing a banana peel. So he used it as an excuse to not take up the resolution. He said, well, why don't you have a meeting with the board of the hospital, which would be a complete waste of time. There's very few hospital boards, even publicly run hospital boards left, that aren't run by professional administrators of some kind. So that would not be so good. I don't really think it plays a role. They may make it play a role, but I don't really think that's a sticking point.
Well, I think one of the big things I think is a sticking point is that in most smaller, more rural environments, you have much stronger Republican or conservative kinds of people. And even though your council may be open-minded, it's not as easy. It's not as easy to feel that they've got the backing of their constituents in the city. So I think that's where I'm coming from, trying to find ways we can get past that.
Absolutely. And that goes to like the previous question. I mean, I think that there are a few things you need to do with when you're talking about the situation. One is, if your city government is difficult for whatever reason, if you can look around in your general area and find the more progressive town and try and go that way first, leverage connections to find out someone you might know there who can be the person that just gets that meeting with the council member. So you can start there. So this is what they did in Connecticut. This is how Medicare for All Connecticut was founded. And they've done amazing things, and they have like a single payer bill now that's come out of like 2 years of work, which is incredible. So the way it was founded was like, there was this person wanted to start this organization, or wanted to start working on Medicare for All resolutions, but he was like, this isn't the ideal place to start. He chose another town like an hour away, and he spent a lot of time networking to find people who lived in that town in New London who would be interested in working on a resolution, worked with them to pass that resolution. And so that's sort of the other angle to go and to know is you don't need to live. It's kind of like lobbying, where you only really need some people from the district to be in that meeting. You don't need to be in the district in order to help organize this campaign. So you just need to have some people with you who are going to these meetings and things. to do that. But the other, so sometimes it can help to go for the progressive town in the area. Then I'm from a rural, area can be big, right? Before going back to your hometown, because then you can be like, well, they passed it, they passed it, they passed it. Or you can find a few progressive towns and then go for the county. But the other thing that I would say is that when you're working with a rural area, and that is where, if that's a problem, that's where you have to start doing that coalition building. And you have to, that can involve more deep organizing. And that's like the challenge of organizing when you're from a rural area, is the deep organizing that goes into it. I mean, the place that I came from, place I'm from, we are removing a Confederate statue that's in front of the courthouse in an area where I would say the majority of the electorate is actually against removing the statue. But what happened is people did that deep organizing for years, and they got it done that way because they just mobilized a lot of young people who are from the area who don't feel that statue represents us. I mean, I'm young here, it's a retirement community now. So, but we don't feel it represents us. So they found us and they mobilized us in that way. And through a bunch of different tactics, they've actually won and it's being moved. But I mean, that's how it is with rural organizing, is like, unfortunately, it's not, in many cases, the infrastructure you need for this win hasn't been built yet. And so, but the important thing to keep in mind is that you're building infrastructure, if you're doing this, you're building infrastructure that other issues, other movements are going to be able to utilize. So now that this statue is getting moved, like so many other issues are going to be so much better off. So many other advocacy issues are going to be so much better off because the road has been built. So, I mean, it's a different game, but that doesn't mean it's less worthwhile.
Thank you. That's good. Good input. Thanks.
Don? Don, you're on mute still. Don Tuvas.
Sorry. This may not be very helpful to Steve, but when you were asked about hospitals in the area, Albert Lee came to mind. Didn't they just open their own community hospital? And then Owatonna might be more progressive, but I think they have a hospital also. But Albert Lee is pretty Republican and conservative. But they were really excited and instrumental in coming up with that community hospital. So.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thanks, Don. I think Jerry had his hand up.
Well, my concern is how long is that going to be a community hospital before they consolidate with Essentia or some other bigger hospital to make more money? And what's going to happen to the jobs in that community when they lose that community hospital?
They just lost a couple of years ago. They lost their hospital, Navy. They merged with Rochester, Mayo. It was a huge issue. But
They may have learned their lesson from allowing the Mayo system to buy them out.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize that they had reopened something.
Yeah, they did about a year ago, actually.
Okay.
But to Jerry's point, I'm not sure how long they can sustain that. And I don't believe it's a full, I'm thinking maybe they don't have surgeries, a surgery center. I don't think it's a 100% full hospital, but even, kudos to them for doing that, what they've done. But It
What
might
about
be,
sorry, Don, what about talking to land stewardship from the area?
Yeah, that's a good point too.
um,
Yeah, we are, I'm a member, my wife and I are members of them and would like to do more with them too, yes.
you know, Steve, Paul's from Albert Lee and his family. In fact, they all had a very personal connection to Navy, the hospital there, and it was quite an emotional and traumatic experience for the town. But anyway, you know, might be worth it to talk to him too, and he still knows a lot of people there.
Oh.
They're
If you
they're
can-
usually working against us, but
Well, if you can give me his contact information, I would contact him.
yeah, I will. Or I can have Paul contact you too.
Okay, well, good.
Okay.
I do want to say like something about the hospitals real quick. Is that when you're making financial calculations, I would generally advise to focus on the cost of insurance for city employees, and you're not looking at the cost of local hospitals. The reason for this is because there is so much Republican focus on cutting this kind of stuff. It goes in that direction, and because it goes in that direction, it gives people the ick. You know, it gives people the ick. But what you can do is you can say, look, we need to, rural areas, rural hospitals need more funding for a whole lot of reasons. In order to operate properly, there needs to be more funding. And one thing Medicare for All would do is it would give more funding, more federal funding to rural hospitals. And talk about it more like, talk about it in more in abundance instead of in, because the fiscal argument for Medicare for All on city budgets it's an argument about cutting things. But when it comes to hospitals, you don't want to suggest anything like that. You want it to be about abundance. You want it to be like more money, like we can actually afford. We can have this Medicare for All that we can afford, this nation can afford, and it would give more funding to our hospitals so that we could have, healthier residents.
Okay, we're at the end of the program. So Dawn.
No, I need to
First-
take my hand down.
Yeah, I just really appreciate Brittany joining with us tonight. I found her, and I think I'm speaking for the rest of us, that she was very informative and insightful with her information and the angles, the tactics to use to be effective in our campaign. And therefore, I think she has motivated us to keep moving ever onward and upward. And we got a good boost from the Duluth City Council. Thanks again to Jerry Witt. And I hope and I expect, because of the quality of this meeting, that those of us who aren't yet activists, active advocates in our cities will think about doing that, joining us and attending the advocates meeting in January. That'll be January 27. And that's the fourth Thursday of the month that we've been usually meeting, but there can be circumstances where that might not happen. But if it's some other date than January 27th, we'll notify you all. So thanks again, Brittany, for coming all the way over here to St. Paul, Minneapolis, Minnesota, to really help us out with your experience and insight. It was very fulfilling for me. And again, I think I'm speaking for the others.
I'd like to give a plug for Brittany's group too. If you want to hear more from her, you can hear from her every month, like I've been doing. And you just have to join Brittany. I'm not sure how they joined the group. I don't remember what I did, but I think you can join it right at their website. Is that correct?
Yes, from the map. Let me just give the more direct link. You can
Okay.
click any icon on the map and it'll take you to the sign up page, or you can do the shortcut and use this link here. And I have a bunch of new pins to add to the map for some of the towns that I learned about today. I wrote them all down.
Great. Thank you so much for coming today, Brittany, and spending this much time with us. It's been really helpful.
Happy to do it. Thanks for my warm welcome.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, everybody, stay tuned. As I mentioned, we're meeting again in January. And you probably saw an interesting note from Tim Burkhart earlier. He is a board member of the Minnesota Association of Small Cities. And he indicated in that his chat note that you probably have seen by now that he is putting together a resolution to run by his colleagues on the association's board. So it looks like Tim might be a point man for the small cities out in greater Minnesota. So that's good to know.
Mhm.
And also, Dave, I saw the note from Julia Holstrom, and your response is Julia, is she a council member?
Yeah, it's Juliana. She's a council member in Osseo. She's gonna be my champion.
Okay. You're gonna be in her corner. And so how's it, is she getting a majority of colleagues to pass the resolution, or?
We haven't cut loose with the rest of them yet. We have one that I know will be on board for sure. I've talked with her also, but the other two I have not yet, but I'm optimistic.
And yeah, thanks, Dave, for getting Brittany with us tonight.
You bet. Will you be sending out links and stuff from the
Yeah.
meeting?
Yeah, probably early next week, I will send out the links. I can include the links that Brittany had posted in the chat, and I'll send out links and other materials as,
Awesome.
that we have presented tonight. Yeah, Ann?
I just signed up to get messages. So Dave, I'll join you on those meetings because I really need more meetings and more email.
Go on, Ann.
Oh my God. Say Public Citizen. Brittany, this is an initiative from Public Citizen, right?
Yeah.
In case anybody's interested in more reading, Public Citizen did an excellent paper. It's probably a 35, 40 page, maybe 50 page paper on single payer Medicare for all, with tons of stats and studies and rationale for this whole movement. So I'm halfway through that paper. It's very good. So they've been a good partner for a long time. They've been a good champion for this issue for a long time. If you're not a supporter of Public Citizen, give them consideration.
Okay.
Linda?
So Anne, I went online and Ramsey County, their budget's online.
Hennepin County?
Hennepin, I'm
Hennepin
sorry.
County.
So 21 and 22 are PDFs. And also Minneapolis elected 3 DSA members.
I saw you wrote that. Okay.
One helped Erin Murphy with 2 of her campaigns.
Okay.
You got a lot of people, and Cunningham was the one that got it passed in Minneapolis, Philippe.
Right. So we need to,
Did
I
he
need to-
make it? I know.
I
Kim-
don't know. I don't know. So I gotta find out.
I know Kim Gordon didn't, which was kind of too bad,
I know.
but he was replaced by some DSA. People liked him. I just don't think they thought he was bulldog enough.
And I get Public Citizen newspaper.
Yeah, me too.
Did you ask them to send it out to you, or did they just send it?
Oh, if you send a contribution and get on their list, I get. They've
Yeah.
been on the drug pricing they're a big watchdog group.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Betty here. Can you send us that reference for the paper you're reading from Public Citizen, please?
Oh, yeah. It's called, if you just look at Public Citizen, the case for Medicare for all. It was published in, and their website is www.citizen.org. The case for Medicare for all, and it's from February 2019, actually. But
Thanks a lot.
put that on the top of the pile there.
Yep.
Yeah, they did a pretty extensive paper like that on COVID and why it justifies Medicare for all. That was really, there's a lot of good stuff in there.
Oh my God. I know it's after 8 o'clock, so Don, you're in charge of this. You and Judy.
Are you ready to end it?
Again, I just want to thank all the attendees and their caring about this work. And hopefully we'll see new members in January, new activists.
Yeah,
you.
and I will send out that follow-up email again, beginning of next week with links and resources, as well as information if you want to become an active city resolution advocate in your city, with Dawn and Dave's email addresses, so you can contact them to become more involved.
Yeah, thanks for doing that, Judy, because I'm here. I have Mr. Michael Moore behind me as my alter ego or whatever. So I'm here to talk with those members who want to be advocates.
Great. And by the way, Amanda and Brian, it's great to see some young people. We have a shortage of them, but good to see you here.
Yeah.
Good to be here. I don't follow everything you guys say or want, but it's good to, try to jump in and learn. I manage a chronic health condition myself, and not having access to healthcare, it just snowballs. So it's important to me, and I thank you all for all of your hard work.
Keep following us.
Okay.
Hang in there too.
Thanks, will do. I do have some good healthcare now. So yeah, things are looking good. Just took a couple years to get there,
I'd like to add a closing comment that I don't think we're going to get single payer Medicare for all nationally without breaking away a state. And the only way we're going to break away a state is what we're doing right now, is we have to hit the cities and the counties and bring it up this way. So this is kind of a microcosm of what Canada did, but we did. We're going to have to start doing it in our own state first and then pass it on to the federal. So this is very important that we do this on the local level.
Agreed.
This is what Canada did. They went by state. They didn't all of a sudden go nationally. They went by state.
That's
and
really important information.
And we have to be thankful to John Marty, Jen McEwen, the other legislators in what is definitely now, and I'm not speaking out of school now, the Minnesota Health Plan Caucus at the Capitol. Again, John Marty, of course, Jen McEwen, Liz Porter. Who are some of the others that are forming the caucus?
Aaron Murphy, Frazier, Omar Fatah.
Yeah, Liz Bolden, Porter, I think I mentioned.
Is Frazier
Meyer.
is Frazier heading it in the House?
Yes, he's the chief house author.
Yeah. So will he head the caucus though too? Frazier?
Yeah, I think he's probably a co-leader from what I'm gathering. And Rose Roach is the point person with the between us and the caucus. And they're going to have a, I guess, a news conference towards the beginning of the session to announce the caucus and its purpose. And we've been getting that from Rose, again, our point person.
I think Aaron Murphy has worked really hard, getting, what's Johnson's first name? The woman that's the engineer. She's Lindsay Porter. There's a lot of legislators that she, over the last, 4 years, has been working with and bringing them on board for all of this.
Ann Stewart Johnson.
That's,
yeah.
Think of her first name.
Sorry,
Ann.
So we have ground to work on and leaders to work with. Regardless, again, getting back to what Jerry was saying, regardless of what happens in Congress, and that's more, well, it's kind of up in the air but we do have leadership, legislative leadership, and we're growing grassroots citizen leadership. So just keep going on with it.
It's the book.
Yeah.
Oh, I laid in a new supply. If anybody needs me, I should have said that when more people were on. If anybody needs me to mail them, I do have to ask for a little money for that book because they cost me $10 each. But I can also send business cards and buttons and things you can have ready to hand out. If you're talking to somebody, that is helpful. If you're talking about this issue, to have them have a contact for you.
You can also download that book. The link's on our website.
That's right.
Yes.
Under resources, or what is it under now?
It's under resources, and then trying to remember the exact. Let me look. Resource under resources, and then reference library.
And I think you have to click on download PDF because clicking on the book doesn't work anymore. Is that right? But if you do download PDF, you can get to it.
Well, it looks like they just changed the link on us again, because I'm clicking the link that I just fixed and it's not working again.
Yeah.
So it was fixed and now it's not working. I'll have to figure that out. But I'll find it again.
Okay.
Are we ready to end this meeting?
Okay,
I'm ready to bid all you fine people, all you beautiful people adieu.
Good night, everyone. Thanks a lot.
yep, good night.
Thanks. Good night.
See you
Night.
down at our precinct caucuses.